Christina and the Complete Jew. A novel by Dr. Ahmed. This book continues the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl, and the story of the Indian child bride and the old Arab husband, and also the story of the Indian Miss World, and the rage of Muslims of the world. They have been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This story resonates with genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I continue narrating the story of the rare, fabulous beauty of the Indian girl, Ifad Khan, and her extremely beautiful mother, Rehana Khan. Before we dive in the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This is an intriguing epic story which exhibits resilience, love, and sacrifice. Book 4. In Search of a Companion in Her Lonely Journey in Life. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from a review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 1. Aphrodite in a Jewish Home. In the meantime, the American FBI has ruled that the former Miss World Aphrodite Krishna Khan, who was also known as Pooja Patel and was miraculously rescued from the deadly Islamic terrorist attack on her family, has to be sent into protective custody as soon as it is possible. The imminent threat against her has not diminished and the hospital is not a secure location for her. They expected the Muslim terrorists to try to launch another attack. It is more a question of when than if. After her discharge, Pooja Khan was taken under high security to a safe house. She raised no objections to any of the changes made to safeguard her life by the authorities. She has, for all purposes in life, lost all interest in resuming her life and going back to her house. She felt as if her life had become meaningless. The pain in her chest now has surpassed the trauma of being rendered unconscious by a bomb blast and all the suffering and agony she had experienced during her many years of kidnap, rape, and imprisonment in the mansions of terror and abuse of the 2 evil men, Sheikh Ahmed and Mahmoud Khan. The American FBI discreetly moved Mrs. Khan to a remote small town and placed her under the care of a host family. The family is a Jewish couple, a husband and a wife with 4 children. 2 sons and 2 daughters who are all grown up with children of their own. The father is a retired FBI officer who operated the safe house. His wife is also a retired schoolteacher, and the couple has been living alone for many years after their grown-up children had left home. This is not the first instance where they have offered to house those needing a safe refuge. This, however, is the first time they have shared their roof with a Muslim girl. Their new guest has been introduced to them by the FBI as Pooja Khan instead of her official name Pooja Patel. The Jewish couple recognized Pooja Khan as a Muslim by her last name. To their credit, they have not refused her because she is a Muslim woman or tried to dissuade her from staying with them when she arrived. Pooja is still younger than the couple's youngest granddaughter and some of their parenting instincts immediately came into play. Before long, the old couple realized that Pooja Khan is very childish, and her coping skills are not as developed as they should be. She is constantly weeping even though the old couple tried their best to comfort her. When they realized that their efforts at consoling her were not working, they left her in solitude so that she could work out her grief and emotions in her own time. It took Pooja an exceedingly long time to accept the fact that she had lost her loving husband and beloved daughter and none of them was going to come back to her. She spent 1 month locked up in her room. She refused to come out and eat with her hosts and preferred to have food brought to her in her room. The Jewish couple is very patient with her, tolerating what can be read as aloofness and irrational behavior. They have not repaid her behavior with harsh or scolding words. The Jewish couple is under strict instruction by the FBI to keep Mrs. Khan under constant surveillance. She is not allowed to venture out alone or be left alone at any time. She is considered a high suicide risk person, besides being a prime target for some dangerous American Islamic terrorists who are of Somali origin. So it is that whenever the Jewish couple goes out, they must take Pooja with them. Within her first week, the couple took her to a small market in town, and on the following Saturday, they took her to their Jewish synagogue. The couple knows that Pooja Khan is a Muslim girl, but they have no choice except to bring her along with them wherever they go, even to their religious place of worship. At first, the couple thought that the Muslim woman might react negatively to being forced to sit in a Jewish synagogue, but their first experience proved them wrong. She is not as strict a Muslim girl as they have been led to believe in the beginning. They have not noticed her fulfilling her daily 5 compulsory prayers or reciting verses from her Holy Quran. At the synagogue, they introduced her to the elders of their congregation. Through it all, they maintained their cover-up story that Pooja Khan is a paying guest who came to live with them for a while. After staying with them for a couple of weeks, the Jewish couple started to decorate their house and prepare for their annual Passover. Pooja's knowledge about God is scant, and her breadth of general religious knowledge is even worse. She had acquired little formal or aesthetic education of even the 2 religions she had grown up with, Islam and Hinduism. None of the people who exerted influence over her had bothered to provide her with religious instruction or share what it meant to worship God. All of them were using her for their pleasure and advantage to different degrees. Some had nurtured her, some had neglected her, but most of them had downright abused her and stunted her mental and religious growth. Pooja Khan has memories of growing up in a destitute Muslim family in the slums of Dharavi in Mumbai. Her memory is vivid when, as a child, she was married to an old man from Saudi Arabia. As an adult girl, she was adopted by a Hindu woman but remained a Muslim. Then she fell in love, married a Muslim man, and had a love child with him. Somewhere in between, her Hindu mother forced her to marry a Hindu boy. Her Hindu mother and husband converted her to Hinduism and changed her name from Aphrodite Krishna Khan to Pooja Patel. When she returned to the United States, she deserted her Hindu husband and returned to her Muslim lover. Although she remarried her Muslim lover, she carried a Hindu name. Her marriage to her Muslim husband forced her to switch back to her old family name, Khan. Pooja Khan knew that destiny had placed her in the hands of Muslims and Hindus. Her stay with a Jewish family exposed her to the teachings of the Old Testament. She has never been to a Muslim mosque or a Hindu temple, nor read the Holy Quran or the sacred Bhagavad Gita. Her first visit to a place of worship is a Jewish synagogue. At first, the religious rituals were all Greek to her. However, as she continued to attend the synagogue with her caretakers every Saturday, she began to grasp the meaning of religion and the concept of God. When the old couple began to prepare for their Passover, she started to show some interest in their religious rituals. She started to come out of seclusion and mingle with the old couple. She began to ask questions about their religious symbols and practices. The old couple became exceedingly happy when they saw a Muslim girl interested in understanding their Judaism. Chapter 2. Meeting the celibate Michael. Michael is the youngest grandson of the Jewish couple Benjamin and Miriam Lewinsky. He is the son of one of their 2 daughters. His mother Deborah is also the youngest among their 4 children. Michael was born out of wedlock. Deborah, at the age of 20, fell in love with a boy among her classmates while away at college, and in a whirlwind relationship lasting a few months, by mistake she became pregnant since the lovers never bothered to use a condom. Before her delivery of her first baby boy, her Italian boyfriend had asked her to abort the unborn child, but Deborah held to her convictions and refused. She was bound and strengthened by her Jewish religious upbringing. She kept her baby but never saw her Italian boyfriend again. She came to know from one of her friends that her Italian boyfriend left America and returned to his country. He did not leave any address or phone number for his pregnant Jewish girlfriend. In due time, her first baby was born. Deborah decided to name him Michael after the name of his Italian father who deserted him before he was born. The so-called illegitimate boy Michael grew up not knowing his biological father. Deborah moved on, completed college, and found employment. In time, she fell in love with one of her colleagues and they were married. Although they had 4 children, Deborah never told her husband or her children about her unwanted firstborn. Michael was barely a few days old when Deborah abandoned him to her parents and walked away as if he was dinner leftovers. Deborah went to the extent of requesting her parents not ever reveal to her son that she is his biological mother. Her parents reluctantly accepted her condition. They followed her wish and hid the truth from their grandson about his biological mother. When Michael grew up, his grandparents told him someone had left him in a basket at their doorstep when he was only a few days old. With no reason to doubt his grandparents, Michael grew up believing that he was an abandoned child. However, during his upbringing, he relished the love and care of his grandparents, and they naturally assumed the role of parents to him. His grandparents gave him their last name and he is to them like a son born in their old age. None of their other children or many grandchildren know about Michael's secret. All of them live the lie that his mother had forced upon the family. Benjamin and Miriam Lewinsky love their youngest daughter Deborah more than they love any of their other 3 children. She is their last-born daughter, and she spends more time with them than any of the couple's other children. She is the only one among the 4 children who never missed a single religious festival and always visited her parents and spent time with them with her husband and children in tow. During her visits, she never let Michael say that she is not his sister. As is expected, Michael treated his biological mother like his auntie, her husband as his uncle, and her children as his cousins through adoption. Likewise, Michael treated them as his relatives whenever his other uncles and aunties and their spouses and children came for the holidays. In the meantime, Michael Lewinsky lived with his grandparents until he graduated from high school. He gained admission into Harvard University and moved into the city but kept in touch with his grandparents. Long weekends or holidays inevitably help him spend time at home. During his studies, Michael had 3 romantic relationships with his female counterparts, but all of them ended prematurely. It was always his religious convictions that caused all 3 girlfriends to leave him one after another. So, this strict religious boy has come to be known among his classmates as the celibate Michael. He earned such a strange name because he did not believe in sexual relations before marriage. His Jewish grandparents instilled in him their values, among them, that sex before marriage is wrong and abortion is an unpardonable sin of murder. Among all the Lewinsky clans, it is only in Michael that their values took hold. He is the only one who upholds the family traditions while the rest of the clan rebelled. All the other Lewinsky children had affairs and slept with their partners before marriage the moment they left home. The only hitch is that Michael was exposed to Christian evangelists in high school and along the way gravitated to Christianity. His conversion upset his Jewish grandparents, but they did not love him any less. Usually, a Jewish converted to Christianity or Islam is treated by his family and relatives as a dead and gone person, and therefore his framed photos on the wall will be turned to the opposite side. His Jewish family members will consider him an accursed relative and do not want to see his face again. However, the kind Jewish grandparents Benjamin and Miriam Lewinsky did not treat their grandson Michael, who converted to Christianity, in that harsh way, and they continued to love him as before. It is worth mentioning here that the Jews do not treat the Jew who converted to another religion as an abominable infidel and accursed apostate, and they kill him as Muslims usually do because their faith orders them. The celibate Michael met the sad Muslim girl Pooja Khan at the end of the first month of her stay in his Jewish home. He has learned only a little about her from his grandparents. He is told that she is a Muslim young woman and for some reason, she had run into trouble with fundamentalist Somali terrorists who had brutally killed her husband Jamal Khan and her baby daughter Rayhana. He is also made to be aware that the FBI has insisted on her being in protective custody with his parents and is paying for her maintenance and upkeep. His parents look pleased when they mention that they have begun to teach her about the Jewish faith and that she is becoming a regular member of their synagogue. Another little interaction has led Michael to see her as a girl who was a loner and therefore unapproachable. Understandably, during his visits home, he kept his distance and was always careful not to intrude into her personal space. After a couple of months, Michael began noticing a change in Pooja's interaction with him. She has started to join them during mealtimes and sometimes takes part in their prayers and scripture readings. Chapter 3. Pooja and Michael on horse riding. The loss of everything that constituted the happiness in her life left Pooja Khan in a downward spiral. Life has lost its appeal, and she does not want to live another day without the only dear people who had brought joy to her heart and allowed her to smile. Coming out of her long ontological coma, she is plunged into the reality that her life is now bereft of any value, of any love, or any intimacy. She felt as if she was cursed from birth. She also thought she got placed under a divine curse by her Hindu mother because she sent her to jail. It might be her Hindu husband who cast a magic spell on her because she killed his baby through abortion. For that reason, his Hindu gods used some dangerous terrorists and murdered her Muslim husband and her baby girl. That is how the simple and naive mind of Pooja interpreted her recent family tragedy. Nothing good had ever lasted, for it would always be taken away from her. Suicide became an extremely attractive option, and she found herself moving in that direction. It is not that she does not have the will to do so, she cannot find anything to kill herself with. After all, this is something new she has never thought of before. She somehow figured that the easiest way for her to achieve her goal was to place herself in the path of a speeding car or to hire someone to shoot her. She knows of no other way to end her meaningless and miserable life. After she was discharged from the hospital, Pooja expected to be allowed to return home. Once there, she would find someone to help her exit an empty whirlwind of lifeless existence. One of her plans for suicide is to hire an assassin off the street. When the FBI barred her from returning to her lifeless castle of ghosts, the threat of the Somalis returning to finish the job imminent, she had hardly expected to have to stay away for 6 months. Without her consent, the FBI took Pooja Khan from the hospital directly to a remote town, which is located many miles away from the city where she used to live. The town has a mere 200 residents. Most of them are aged or retired government employees. It is known as a friendly town because everybody is friends with others. It has a small market. Everyone in the town knows each other. The locals are not surprised to see Pooja Khan with the Lewinsky family, as they are used to them housing paying guests. Mr. Benjamin Lewinsky had 40 years of FBI service under his belt before he opted for retirement. In essence, he provides an outsourced secure safe house for high-profile FBI informants and witnesses. Whenever the FBI needed a safe house for a witness who was being threatened, and security was at the level where they needed the utmost secrecy, they would refer them to an external program and special unit, for which no internal records were kept. Mr. Lewinsky had long since volunteered himself as a protective custodian and his Jewish home as a safe house. Every now and then he would be charged with protecting a particularly important, but frightened material witness or informer, and he would be paid well for his services. When Pooja Khan arrived at Lewinsky's house, she was stumped. The family has a barn with horses and an old beat-up truck. Hardly any traffic or vehicles can be seen in the little town. There is a small church with a school bus, used to ferry parishioners from their homes to church on Sundays. During the school week, the bus will serve to take the few children of the parish to their school in a bigger town nearby. Apart from that, the market vendors use small tractors to bring their produce from the outlying farms. The inhabitants spend most of their time in their houses, and hardly anyone can be seen walking on the streets during the daytime. At night, the whole town goes to sleep as early as 7 o'clock in the evening. In the beginning, Pooja felt as if she had been cast out of the world of human beings and thrown onto a new planet with no inhabitants. She is truly in compulsory exile. For her, it is worse than jail. She hates the place because it does not have what she is looking for. She wants a crowded city where she can step off the sidewalk into the path of a speeding car and end it all. She concluded that her misery and agony would never end. Whenever anything good happened in her life, someone or something had to come along and destroy it. She concluded she must have been cursed at birth. During her first month's stay, the old couple tended to her necessities, giving her food and shelter. She refused to interact with the Lewinsky members, and so they left her alone with her grief, thinking that it was the best thing to do. In that first month, they had taken her to their Jewish synagogue 4 times, which is only a couple of blocks from their house. Mrs. Lewinsky tried to claw her back into the land of the living by inviting her along for her morning walks, but Pooja refused the offer. Mrs. Lewinsky, as patient as a mother of 4 can be, then tried to interest her in accompanying her to the marketplace so that they could stock up on her favorite foods, but she flatly refused that, too. After many attempts, the old couple wisely decided that they should leave her alone to mourn and wait till she was ready to come out on her terms. It is during the holiday season that the sad Muslim girl Pooja Khan suddenly changed her mind and came out of her room and joined the Jewish family in their evening prayer. The celibate Michael happened to be home at that time. There are only a few months separating Pooja and Michael in their ages. Michael is enthralled by the stunning sight of the former Miss World. He could not believe his eyes when he first laid eyes upon her. He told his parents in front of her that he had never seen such a beautiful girl in all his life. Even so, his good words have done nothing to touch the broken heart of Mrs. Khan. It does not come into her mind to even thank him. The lovely girl Pooja Khan just came in and sat quietly with the family. Mrs. Lewinsky expressed her joy at seeing their house female guest joining them. For them, it is a victory of sorts. Then she introduced her to their grandson. Michael stood up and offered his hand to her to shake her hand, which she promptly refused. Instead, she responded by clasping her hands together as if she wanted to clap and placing them in front of her face in the traditional Hindu greeting and saying, "Namaste." Michael did not feel offended and politely smiled and brought a chair for her. She positioned herself in the chair and Michael sat in the chair directly in front of her, trying not to stare. 15 minutes into the dinner, the sad girl did not speak a single word. Her responses to all questions were with a polite nod of her head and a beguiling smile, leaving no doubt that she understood what was going on. At that time, Michael observed Pooja, trying to read the enigma seated before him. After dinner, Pooja smiled at the family and walked straight to her room without saying goodbye or good night. Although her behavior seemed a little odd to Michael, his grandparents were visibly happy with her participation in their first meal together since she had arrived. That night, Michael spent a while lying in bed thinking of the Muslim girl. Her behavior puzzled him, and her silence was deafening. He cannot relate to what his grandparents had told him about her devastated family life. He correctly predicted there is more to it, simply more than meets the eye. He possesses a shrewd and analytical mind, and he brought his inquisitive intellect to try to understand this issue of the sad Muslim girl. Through her smiles, her eyes belied a mind clouded with dark and sad memories. He saw a wavering image of a young woman shaken by life's traumas. He yearns to talk to her and find out more about her past life. As is his habit, Michael's visit to his grandparents' house always led to a horse ride. He loved riding his grandpa's horse, and the beauty of the open countryside beckoned him. There is nothing he enjoyed at home more than savoring the beauty of nature and the open landscape from his saddle. The next time he came in was on a Friday. Early the next morning, he saddled up and went for a long leisurely ride. When he returned, he noticed the lovely girl Pooja standing by the window of her room watching him. He waved his hand to her, and she waved back to him. He felt like he had finally established some slight rapport with her. The vision of her smile and her gentle wave stayed with him long after she lowered her hand. Encouraged by her friendly response, he raised his voice and called for her to come out. He expected that she would either apologize or just ignore him. He watched as her beautiful face disappeared from the window, and minutes later, she walked through the doorframe and toward him, closing the distance between them. Michael tentatively asked Pooja if she would like to go for a horseback ride. The lovely Indian girl spoke for the first time several words. She expressed a desire to, but she said she had never been on a horse before. Michael smiled and offered to coach her along. Finding her agreeable, he eased her up onto the saddle and slid in behind her. The shy girl does not have this in mind and is a little uncomfortable with body contact. She felt as if she was sitting on his lap. She considered asking him to dismount, but she is worried that she may fall right off the moment the horse twitches. Before she could say anything, Michael nudged the horse with a practiced kick and the horse obeyed his command. Michael eased the horse into a canter, then a trot. Before long, he had the horse in a nice easy gallop with his left hand encircling her while his right hand held the horse reins. She felt his arm ring around her waist and held her tightly like a baby girl he was afraid to drop. After a mile down a lonely country road, he decided to stop his horse. Pooja heard Michael's voice talking near her ear. He began his instruction with the 7 basic techniques of horse riding. 1. Take one rein in each hand, the left rein in your left hand and the right rein in the right hand. 2. Grab the reins with all 4 fingers, with the reins coming in through your pinky and coming out at the forefinger. 3. Hold the reins in place with your thumbs against your forefingers. 4. Hold your hands in the thumbs up position, with your palms slightly downward and thumbs turned toward each other. Hold your hands no farther apart than the width of the horse's neck. 5. Keep your wrists and fingers relaxed. Let your arms and elbows hang naturally, but do not let them droop. Hold the reins as if you are lightly squeezing a sponge. 6. Keep your hands about an inch in front of the saddle and a few inches above the horse. 7. Lift your thumbs and let the reins slide out to add length. Shorten the reins by using the other hand to take up the extra length. Chapter 4. At the Blue Lake. Before Pooja knew it, the introductory lesson was over, and Michael had taken her quite a distance. An incredibly beautiful lake lay before them. Pooja took her time to take in her vision of the verdant carpet around the crystal clear, blue-tinged lake. Blue Lake seemed like a good place to go swimming, she mused. As their mount moved along, she realized that Michael was more interested in teaching her how to ride the horse. He does not linger for long at the lake, and after a few minutes hurried her up into the saddle again and jumped in his place behind her. It is hot and sunny by now and Pooja began to sweat. As he held her hands to the reins, the moist perspiration from her body and his body cemented them together just like intimate lovers. The combination of the canter of the horse and his warm body on her big backside gave Pooja a rushing sexual desire to have him. She is thinking of not refusing him if he wants to take advantage of her and make love with her right there on the horseback sex style. His manner is gentlemanly, so she gave him no indication of the gamut of sexual desires running through her young body. She longs for his hands to touch her breasts and satisfy her strong sexual arousal. She wants him to hold her in his long arms, kiss her lips, and love every inch of her body the way her Uncle Jimmy had loved her. As they drew closer to the Jewish home, Pooja understood that Michael was not going to fulfill her desire that day. She wondered how a boy could come so close to a girl and touch her all over her body for more than 2 hours without feeling anything. Although Pooja did not get what she wanted, she is excited to have ridden a horse for the first time. It helped her to come out of her shell and embrace life after so many days of self-imposed isolation. Having dealt with more suffering and tragedy than many people in a lifetime, she felt that Michael was an angel that God had sent to her. In the Jewish synagogue, the Muslim girl Aphrodite Khan had heard that the God of the Jews, Jehovah or Yahweh, sometimes sent his angels to help his chosen people. That day once again she came down from her room and joined the family for lunch. After lunch, Michael invited her to go with him to the small market. She smiled and nodded her head in agreement. Michael's grandparents noticed the sudden change in the gloomy, introverted girl who seemed to be responding to the young, handsome grandson. Pooja felt disappointed when Michael told her that the market was so close to their house that they could walk a short distance. She wants to ride tandem with him once again and feels his body touching her body and giving her another strong sexual arousal. But off they went on foot, with Michael breaking the silence by talking about himself. She felt touched and so sad when he told her that he had been abandoned by his biological mother a few days after he was born. He told her that he is indebted to the Lewinsky family for adopting him and bringing him up as their grandson. Pooja hesitated to tell him about her abuse and misery. However, she told him she lost contact with her Muslim mother when she was just 7 years old girl, and when she grew up, she was adopted by a Hindu woman. Her new boyfriend Michael is naturally curious to know about the period between her two mothers, but Pooja does not elaborate. Any question about her childhood is rewarded with a quiet, willful pause. Michael thought it was better not to question her further about her childhood and changed the subject. After all, he does not want to ruin the happy mood of the sad girl he has come to know now for some time. When they reached the market, Michael took Pooja to a small restaurant selling snacks and bought her a soft drink of Pepsi Cola, but he preferred to have a soda. He also ordered 2 hamburgers for them. The Christian boy was surprised when the Muslim girl began to eat the sandwich without bothering to ask whether it had a slice of halal meat or not. Michael preferred not to ask her a personal question about her religious commitment, noticing that he had never seen her reading her Holy Quran or praying to her Allah. Moreover, at Harvard University he had seen most of the Muslim girls put on long loose dresses and each girl concealed her hair and head with a scarf called the hijab. But this Muslim girl Pooja Khan is always wearing Western clothes. She also mixes with him although he is not her close relative or follower of her Islamic faith. When he was a new freshman in college, Michael had taken a few classes on the history and philosophy of Islam and women and marriage in Islam and learned a great deal about that Arab religion. Therefore, he concluded that Pooja Khan is the farthest Muslim girl to that misogynistic religion he learned about. After that, Michael took his new girlfriend to roam around the market and showed her many things in handcrafted gift shops. He knows the small town in and out, explaining this is where he spent his childhood and how he knew every person by name. He even introduced her to some of his friends. Pooja discovered that everybody liked Michael. He seemed to be everyone's friend. Michael promised Pooja that on his next visit, he would take her to visit the house of one of his best friends and eat with him and his wife and their children some of their tasty Greek food. His promise reminded her of the tasty Indian dishes her handsome lover Uncle Jimmy used to cook for her. But she preferred not to mention that to her new American boyfriend. As they returned to the house, Pooja's attitude towards the Lewinsky members changed. The old couple can see a different person in her. She looked so happy and began to speak to them. She does not go to her room but remains in the living room until dinner time and even has dinner with them again. The following morning, Pooja does not wait for Michael to invite her to go horse riding with him, she is already waiting for him. She asked him to take her for a ride and Michael gladly agreed. She assumed the same front place as the day before and Michael assumed his back seat. His touch along her big backside and hips seemed more pleasurable now that her apprehension was diminishing. She noticed that her new boyfriend is not concentrating on teaching her horse riding skills, he is more interested in talking to her. He asked how long she would be staying with his parents and where she would go when it was time for her to leave. Pooja told him the truth, that she had no idea, and that she had no one left in her life to go to. She confided in him about her suicidal thoughts when she first arrived and told him that she had no will left to live, hoping that she could pay someone to ram her down with his car or shoot her in the head with his gun. She also told him of her alternate suicidal plan to hire someone off the street and ask him to strangle her to death. Michael admonished her gently, reinforcing that there is always hope in life. He began to tell her about his religion and how God created people to live and not to take the lives of others, that suicide will be wrong in the eyes of her creator and committing murder against oneself. As soon as they reached the lake, Michael told Pooja more about God and his religious faith. Pooja told him that she had never heard anybody talk so much about their religion and praying to God until she met him and his Jewish family. Everywhere she went people took advantage of her. The only person who had given her everything she had ever wanted in life was her late Muslim husband, Uncle Jimmy, even though she had never seen him praying or heard him talking about Islam or his Allah. Michael explained to her the importance of having faith in God. For the first time, Pooja saw a young man engrossed in his love for God and who cared enough to talk to her without being distracted by her marvelous beauty or her sexy body. Michael seemed vastly different from the men that she had come in contact with before, Sheikh Ahmed, Mahmud Khan, and Rahul Patel. She has known two types of men, those that were only interested in pleasuring themselves and one at least that loved and cared for her. Oddly, Michael does not fit into any of these two types of categories. Before meeting him, she always assumed that men were drawn to her because of her beauty and for their sexual gratification. It puzzled her that she did not have that effect on Michael. He only seemed to be interested in talking to her about his faith and his relationship with God. As soon as they returned to the house, Michael proposed to teach his new girlfriend how to play the guitar. He has a guitar, which he plays during the prayer sessions, and his grandparents join in. The Muslim girl liked the idea and sat near him on a love seat in the living room. Once again, she felt the touch of his strong hands on her delicate hands as he showed her how to hold the guitar and how to coax music out of its strings and frets. Meanwhile, she is enjoying being so close to him and is becoming accustomed to intimacy. She likes his thick voice and his strong, stocky build. Michael is tall and a very handsome young man. Contrary to what his muscled exterior may suggest, he is very gentle. Pooja had told him while they were riding the horse together that afternoon how much she liked his strong hands as they held the horse reins. Michael smiled and told her again that she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life. Pooja reveled in the compliment but did not reveal that she was once crowned Miss World. She just smiled, basked in the attention, but suddenly felt shy. Pooja realized that Michael had begun to grow fond of her and she cannot deny similar feelings for him. What bothered her was his behavior. She wishes that he had kissed her on her lips and openly expressed his sexual desire for her. She now wants him to have mad passionate sex with her. She remembered sitting close to him on his horseback and feeling his erection piercing along the side of her lower backside. While the horse was galloping, she could feel his phallus rubbing against her big buttocks as his hand was wrapped so tightly around her, but he never went beyond that. He did not kiss her lips or cheeks or touch her breasts. If he had done that to her, she would not have resisted him. That night the lovely Indian girl Pooja remained awake for an exceedingly long time thinking about the handsome American boy Michael. She knew that she had fallen in love with the gentle giant and that this love had restored life in her dying body and dried soul. Coming out of a foggy haze of depression while she was in the hospital, in the beginning in the Jewish home, death was constantly staring at her from all different directions. Death for her is the end of love, hate, good, and evil. At this moment in time, she no longer wants to kill herself. She no longer thought that Michael was only a godsend. She knew and understood that he was indeed sent by God to stop her from killing herself. Pooja's life has been based on the need to survive. Everything she has learned so far is based on need. There is no time or place for morals or things of a religious nature. The concept of sex within the sanctity of the marriage bond is unknown to her. She cannot appreciate that for some, this is the way the sexual intimacy of man and woman is supposed to be. Her first marriage experience was clouded with rape and abuse. Her second captor did not even bother to marry her openly. He just treated her as a secret-kept wife, tortured, and abused her through his cruel sadistic sex tendencies. Her first real love affair and sexual intimacy with her Uncle Jimmy was based on mutual friendship or reciprocal sex interest. It was a give-and-take relationship. From day one, she knew that her lover Jimmy was a married man and still she did not hesitate to sleep with him before marriage, eventually agreeing to marry him even though he was already married to another woman. Her fourth experience at matrimony was an arranged Indian marriage, based on the selfish interest of her Hindu husband. All her experiences with men were based on some selfish indulgences. Naturally, it is not surprising, that the abused girl Pooja Khan has extended her immature moral values to Michael, expecting him to initiate sex with her. What does marriage have to do with it? Lying in bed one night, she decided that it was time to seduce him. She has just to tempt him and put him in a situation where he cannot avoid having sex with her. She knows she has the stunning beauty and the sexy body that can tempt the holiest religious man in the world. The very next day, she packed one of her dresses into a small handbag. When Michael asked her what she was carrying in her handbag, she told him it was a surprise. Michael has not tried to figure out what kind of surprise she has in store for him. He just helped her to climb onto the mare and he jumped in behind her. Everything went as before until they reached the blue lake. She could feel his erection nudging her big backside as his arms girdled her tightly. She happened to be dressed up in very tight jeans and a sleeveless shirt. Her tight clothes made her buttocks look bigger and her pomegranate-like breasts half exposed. When they reached the lake, she asked him to close his eyes, and he must not open them until instructed otherwise. When she was satisfied that he was not peeking, she opened her small handbag and took out what she brought with her. Then she looked all around, and when she did not see anyone, she stripped off all her clothes including her red underwear and bra. She stood up fully buck naked and enjoyed the feeling of being standing naked before her new lover. She wishes that he would cheat and see her naked and sexy body. She then put on her pink bikini and eased herself into the lake. Once in the water up to her ankles, she shouted at Michael by calling his name and told him that it was now okay for him to look. When Michael opened his eyes, he was astonished to see her standing by the water in her sexy bikini. She looked simply marvelous to him and extremely sexy in her swimsuit. Michael expressed his desire to swim with her but regretted she did not tell him of her pleasant surprise before leaving the house. He let his response taper off before telling her that she looked absolutely beautiful and hot in her string bikini. Pooja is not interested in modeling in her sexy bikini in front of him or her swimsuit or swimming. She just wants him to see what she looks like in her swimsuit. After soaking for a while, she slipped out of the water, came to him, and reminded him that he must bring his swimsuit tomorrow and join her in the water. Then she picked up her towel and began to towel the front of her body. She turned around, gave him the towel, and requested him to dry her back and half-exposed big buttocks. Michael took the towel and began to dry her body. The shrewd boy understood that she was trying to tempt him, and she wanted him to touch her body and get him sexually excited. When he finished drying off her back, buttocks, hips, and legs, he told her that he was going to close his eyes again, turn around, and allow her the privacy to change her clothes. His words made the sexy girl extremely disappointed. She felt like jumping on him and strangling him when she saw his face turning away from her. Things have not gone according to plan. She felt that he was rejecting her and that he did not share her romantic and erotic feelings in return. When she removed her pink bikini and put on her other dress, Pooja felt a tinge of anger when he motioned for her to sit with him, and he began to speak to her about his religion and his God again. Chapter 5. The Incompatible Lovers. The next day, Michael's new Indian girlfriend has only become more disappointed when he joined her in the water. He neither touched her exposed sexy body nor showed her any erotic affection. She had done everything she could to tempt him into promiscuous relations, but nothing worked. Pooja's antics included playing around splashing water, touching tags, and stealing little kisses. Michael swam alongside her as if he were her long-lost brother and tried his best to keep her at a distance. Once again, after toweling off her half-naked body and allowing her to change her red swimsuit, Michael sat beside Pooja and once again started to talk to her about God. His behavior is enough to exasperate a female saint. The day after, not wishing for a repeat performance, Pooja told him that she was feeling poor and could not go horse riding or swimming with him. Michael took it for what she said and cancelled their morning ride. He suggested taking her to the family doctor, but she declined the offer. She also refused to come out of her room and join the family for lunch. After spending most of the day in seclusion, Michael got worried and decided to look in on her. He knocked on her door and offered again that he could take her to see a doctor. She turned away and hung her head in silence. It dawned on Michael that Pooja was simply upset with him for some slight or perceived insult, the pout on her face confirming his suspicions. Michael sensed tenseness in her from the time they had left the lake. She remained sullen and unfriendly. On the way home, she did not want to talk or respond to anything he said. At the time, he was apprehensive about going too far too fast in a further discussion of his Christian faith because he thought that what he had said about his God and his religion made her reflect in some way and think deeply. He then thought that since she is a Muslim girl, Pooja Khan felt bad because he knew from his preaching experience in college that among all Asian and Arab foreign immigrant students, Muslims hate to hear the gospel of Jesus being preached to them. He witnessed some of them become offensive and violent. For that reason, Michael decided not to talk to her about religion again. It was only when the silent and angry mood continued that he correctly perceived the true reason for her bad moodiness. He understood that he had disappointed her by not reciprocating her sexual advances, but he just could not compromise his religious principles to please her. Michael remembered that all his previous 3 love relationships with the other girlfriends ended when he refused to compromise his religious convictions. He nursed the thought that Pooja is like his other girlfriends who left him when they came to view him as some sort of one of those religious fanatics. Nevertheless, he decided to talk to her and tell her that he deeply loves her, but his Christian faith will not allow him to cross the limits set by his holy Creator. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you, Pooja." Pooja did not invite him in, but her body language acquiesced. She just retreated to her bed and sat on the edge. She has nothing to offer him to sit on in her room except her bed. She motioned with her hand for Michael to sit beside her. He sat so near to her until his body touched her thighs. Then he remained silent for a few seconds before he began to speak. "I know that you love me, and I love you too, and I feel in an incredibly special way. But I am a devoted Christian and committed to my faith. I cannot go beyond what God has permitted in His Holy Bible or go beyond the red line that I had been taught by my Jewish parents what is wrong for me to do." The Muslim Indian girl Pooja has not fully grasped what her American Christian lover Michael is trying to say to her. On the contrary, she completely misunderstood him. She thought that as a devoted and committed Christian man, he meant to say he must live his whole life without marrying any girl. She thought his faith implied he was like a nun. When she stayed with the 2 Good Samaritan girls Annie and Nancy and other nuns in New Delhi, her Hindu mother told her that those girls had dedicated their lives to the Lord Jesus Christ, and hence none of them would marry a boy or allow any man to have sex with her. Each one of them is counting herself as the bride of Jesus Christ. So, when the Christian boy Michael told Pooja that he loves her deeply, but he is a committed Christian, she thought that he is a kind of a male nun, and he has also become the bride of Christ. Pooja has never come across a Hindu sannyasi or a Christian monk. She does not realize that there are men who abstain from sex for religious reasons until Michael starts to explain his stance in this regard. She cursed herself and hated her luck, which led her to fall in love with a man nun who married himself to his God. At that moment, she felt like turning to him and slapping him left, right, and center and also biting him with her sharp teeth. She just wants to ask him, if you knew that your religious commitment does not allow you to have sex with any woman, why haven't you locked yourself up in a cell to prevent contact with women or go to the jungle in India or the desert of Egypt and then live all alone in a hermit cell? While those ideas went around in her confused mind, Pooja continued to listen to Michael's words. "I fell in love with 3 girls before I met you. Sadly, all of them left me when they came to know that I would not have sex with a girlfriend because the Bible forbids me from committing adultery with a woman. I know you are disappointed to find out that I have religious boundaries that hold me back, and I think you may want to leave me for the same reason. And if you do, I won't blame you." Michael waited for Pooja to respond to his words, but she remained silent for a while, and then he got up and left her room. He thought that maybe she was like his former 3 girlfriends who believed that lovers should have sex before marriage to find out whether they are sexually compatible or not. To his own heart too. With nothing left to say and despair enveloping him like a heavy blanket, he quietly left and retired to his room, falling upon his bed, weeping bitterly. Nevertheless, the strict Christian boy Michael will soon discover that his lovely new Muslim girlfriend Pooja is nothing like his former American girlfriends. He is expecting himself to be ostracized and ignored by her after confessing his feelings and making his situation clear. Oddly, he soon found out the lovely Indian girl Pooja had not decided to leave him or stop loving him. The following morning, she was the one who knocked on the door of his room and told him that she would be waiting outside for their morning horse ride. When he came out, to his pleasant surprise he saw her dressed up like a beauty queen, complete with a beautiful crown perching atop her head. She is wearing the very dress she had worn when the car bomb went off and took the lives of her 2 dear ones with many more innocent lives. She looks stunning in her expensive dress to the point where Michael mumbled, "You look like a beauty queen." Pooja waited for him to say exactly that, and that is when she announced that she was the former Miss World. At first, her American boyfriend thought that she was just joking. He is too engrossed in taking in the breathless stunning beauty of sight before him to ask any inconsequential questions regarding her claim. Michael could not read Pooja's intentions. He thought that she accepted his condition and agreed to keep her friendship with him until the point where they could consider marriage. He knows that as long as she is not a Christian girl, he will not consider proposing to her. His future bride must have to fulfill 3 conditions. First, she has to agree to keep the relationship platonic. That will even rule out a kiss on the forehead, which she has to comply with. Second, she has to forsake Islam and embrace Christianity. Third, she has to be very committed as a Christian girl. Then and only then he can consider betrothing her for marriage. On the other hand, the Muslim girl Pooja has her secret plans too. Till he throws caution to the wind, loses all his morals. She has determined to continue her attempts of seduction with her unmatchable beauty and sexy body until he throws caution to the wind, loses all his morals, succumbs to his desires, and fuck her with or without marriage. Secondly, she must reveal her past successes in life and tell him about her beauty queen and Bollywood triumphs. Thirdly, she decided to tell him that she had over $95 million in her bank account besides her $5 million mansion in the city where he is studying at Harvard University, plus her other properties in the Middle East. At this stage, she decided it would not be in her best interests to divulge too much of her abusive past married life with her evil captors and rapists. After thinking it over, she decided not to tell him how she came to have such a great fortune and opted for an alternative version of an inheritance from her late rich Indian father. Therefore, after the quiet storm of the previous day, both of them worked relentlessly trying to change the other, from both ends of the spectrum. Michael is striving hard to convert his 4th girlfriend to Christianity, and Pooja is trying her best to tempt her newfound handsome 3rd boyfriend through her beauty and wealth. She realized this was the first young handsome man she fell in love with, and he was equal to her age. She then informed him that she had won Miss India in Bangalore City and crowned Miss World in London. Michael in the beginning did not believe her until he had carried out a thorough search on the internet and found out that she was indeed who she claimed to be. The simple and plain way in which she told him, without any pretension, only made him love her more. Michael, understandably as any other young man in his place may feel, has been fascinated by her social status when he came to know that his 4th girlfriend is a filthy rich young Indian girl and the most beautiful girl in the world. Nonetheless, either way, her beauty and wealth have done nothing to shake his religious convictions. For 2 weeks, the American lover Michael continued to talk to his Indian girlfriend Pooja about his religion and tried hard to convince her to accept Christianity, but he could not change her. He discovered that she was a kind of irreligious atheist bordering on pagan ideologies. She claimed to be a Muslim girl, but she knew truly nothing about Islam. She does not know even the basic tenets of Islam, such as how to pray 5 times a day, when to fast the holy month of Ramadan, or how and why she must perform the Hajj rituals. Moreover, he found her to be a very childish and naive girl. She does not show any interest in embracing his religion. The temptress girl Pooja also tried hard for 14 days to tempt the celibate Michael in every way possible, but she could not make him budge from his religious position. She soon found out that he harbored no interest in her millions of dollars or her huge mansion in the city. Consequently, both lovers have utterly failed to influence one another and slowly realized that they are incompatible and unmarriageable lovers. Chapter 6. The New Girl Christina Lewinsky. After the Christmas holidays were over, the American Christian boyfriend Michael returned to Harvard University and left his stubborn Indian Muslim girlfriend Pooja with his Jewish grandparents. He had given up all hope in getting her to contemplate Christianity. For some reason, the depths of his failure could not be able to erase what he considered to be the happiest days of his life with his fourth girlfriend. It is amply clear to him that she also loves him dearly and did everything she could to try and please him and have a good time with him. Likewise, wishing to make him forsake his religious commitment, the Indian girl Pooja failed in her attempts for them to be together as husband and wife. What she had not realized was that Michael had managed to instill some Christian values in her empty life. He changed her understanding of society and the world and gave her new perspectives on God, religion, and the human conscience. He had accompanied her in Bible readings, playing the guitar, singing hymns, praising God, and the much-looked-forward to horseback ride to Blue Lake every day. After Michael left, Pooja continued to keep the new faith in her American lover, finding consolation in the things that remind her of him. Michael's way of life became a permanent fixture in her life. Every word of the Bible, every hymn, every prayer, and every string on the guitar reminded her of her American lover. Pooja never loved a man before more than she loved Michael. Her love for the celibate Michael surpassed her love for her Uncle Jimmy. She found him to be a loving and caring boyfriend. She understood that he was more interested in giving than in taking. She could not seduce him through her unmatchable beauty or lure him through her riches. She understood that he loved her no matter what she was now or what she had been before. He taught her a new kind of love. He loves something in her that is beyond her body and wealth. He loves her innocence and childlike nature. While many of us grow up conforming to societal values of maturity and common sense, we often lose the childlike wonder and joy that allows us to see the world differently. Her American lover Michael is the first of her three lovers to understand the difference between a childish and a childlike girl. He understood that Pooja was not a childish girl as many around her had viewed her that way, but she had a pure and innocent heart like a female child. Michael always remembers his Lord had said to his followers, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Again, Christ said, "Truly I tell you, anyone who does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will never enter it." He understood that his Indian girlfriend had that childlike innocent nature. When Michael coached Pooja about horse riding, playing the guitar, reading the Bible, and praying to God, he opened her soul to a different realm. She found peace of mind and serenity in the spiritual path he opened before her eyes. She found that whenever she gave praises and prayed the way Michael had taught her to do, she was filled with the peace of his Christian God. Before she came to the Jewish home and met her Christian lover, Michael, the Muslim girl spent most of her miserable life with two evil Muslim men who taught her nothing good. Their Islamic religion taught them the abuse of a female child is halal marriage and that committing adultery with 4 women at the same time is a divinely ordained right to man. They also learned that they must consider all non-Muslims as defiled and unclean infidels and bitter enemies of God, and as such they must convert them by the sword to their religion, and if they refuse to embrace Islam, they have to kill them, rape their wives and daughters, possess their properties, and occupy their lands, and also enslave their women and children. Therefore, from those Muslim men, the Muslim girl had learned wrong is right, unrighteousness is holiness, and doing evil is good. But then when she met her American boyfriend Michael and he read to her the Lord Jesus Christ's Sermon on the Mountain, which teaches his followers to love everybody, even their enemies, her understanding of life changed dramatically. Before she met him, she was only interested in satisfying her immediate desires and acquiring material happiness. Michael showed her a new concept of God in a way she could internalize all that her Maker is like a loving creator. She has all the physical virtues of beauty, health, inner strength, and wealth, which are supposed to be the key ingredients for happiness. However, whatever happiness she was able to attain in life, contentment and peace always seemed to elude her grasp. But Michael's love is unselfish and unconditional love. A love without expectations or anything in return. He did not love her because of her beauty and the pleasure that he could get just from looking at her beauty and desiring her sexy body. Also, it is not because of her millions of dollars. He is not even like her late husband Uncle Jimmy, who forsook the wife of his youth and fell in love with her because she is younger and prettier than his first Muslim wife. However, Michael's love penetrated her every being and touched her deep inside. Theirs is a love between two souls, and it is meant to be no matter what happened, whether far apart or sitting side by side. Pooja felt that although Michael had left physically, his soul remained intertwined with her soul. She continued to feel his presence in the Christian hymns he taught her to sing, in the verses of the Holy Bible he read to her, and in the strings of the guitar he taught her to play. He is there with her when she rides without him on horseback, his presence is there when she sits by the edge of the lake, and he is by her side when she swims in the warm water of Blue Lake. Despite the strong love Michael and Pooja have for each other, neither of the two understands the other. Michael thought that Pooja could never become a Christian, and Pooja concluded that Michael would never marry a woman or have sex in his life. A couple of months after the celibate Michael returned to Harvard University, his Indian girlfriend Pooja completely changed from being an irreligious girl to a girl of spiritual awakening. She began to go to the town's church and learn more about the religion of her American lover. He was the one who took her there first and introduced her to his church pastor and other Christian brethren. For 2 months, after her lover left, she did not miss a single Sunday service. The church taught her many things about God and Christianity. She was able to grasp the basic teachings of Jesus and many things about his life and work while he was on earth. She learned about the different aspects of his divinity, the sacrifice he made on behalf of the world, and the concepts of sin, atonement, and salvation through faith in his resurrection. She came to accept all these things as truths from a merciful God. Gradually, the Muslim girl Pooja Khan found herself being drawn to the church and Christian values. She had the universe in the palm of her hands, and it was snatched away from her in a mere few minutes by the Muslim terrorists. In the twinkling of an eye, she lost the dearest two persons in the world to her, which led her to lose interest in life. She became so despondent that she wanted to take her own life. When Michael entered her domain and began to teach her about his religion and God, her dead soul had been revived from the clutches of death. She experienced a kind of love that she had never known before. It is not a love based on give and take like that of her former two lovers, the handsome Hindu Bollywood actor Samir Krishna Khan and her Muslim husband Uncle Jimmy. Eventually, of her own free will, she decided to convert and embrace the faith and religion of her American lover. After her conversion, it was she who demanded to be baptized in her new faith, and on the day of her baptism, the girl Pooja Khan decided to get rid of her Hindu name. Likewise, she intended to discard her Muslim last name too. Like a chrysalis, she is emerging into a new life, one that is vastly different and holds untold promises for the future and to the times indefinitely. She resolved that this time she must be the one to choose her name and not someone else. The name that appealed to her is Christina because she became a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ, her Lord and Savior. Then she decided to choose a last name that would connect her to her Christian lover forever. Therefore, that Memorial Sunday, Christina Lewinsky walked out of the church nave and was baptized into Christ and a new life. After her conversion, Christina understood that her new faith required her to forgive everyone that wronged her during her lifetime. It is hard, but she forgave the two evil men who kidnapped, raped, and imprisoned her in their mansions of terror in Tehran and Mumbai. She felt great relief after she forgave them by name, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed and Mahmud Khan. She also forgave her selfish Hindu husband Rahul Patel. She also forgave the wicked lawman who had raped her when she was in those rotten Indian jails in Mumbai and Pune. She even forgave her Hindu mother who took away her baby girl and gave it to a Christian orphanage in New Delhi and forced her to marry someone against her wishes. Driven by an uncommonly divine love filling her heart, Christina forgave the Muslim terrorists who killed her husband Uncle Jimmy, and their innocent baby girl Rayhana. She even remembered her Muslim biological mother Rayhana Khan and decided she must return to India and look for her. Although she knew that her return to Mumbai would involve high risk, she was still determined to go back to her motherland. She trusts her Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to protect her from those ruthless Muslim terrorists of Dawood Ibrahim. Before Christina's trip back to India, Michael came to know about her conversion to Christianity through one of his best friends from the church. His friend happened to visit the city a few days after Christina was baptized in the church on Sunday morning. The friend visited Michael at his apartment and broke the good news to him about his Indian girlfriend's conversion and baptism. Michael has never been happier in all his life than the day he learned that his beloved fourth girlfriend converted to Christianity and changed her name from Pooja to Christina. He wants to call her on the phone, but he is afraid he may not be able to fully express all the happy feelings he is feeling inside his heart. Instead took time to write her a long love letter and sends it with a beautiful greeting card which read, "Congratulations." Michael thought that the fastest way to get his first romantic epistle to his girlfriend was to send it by hand delivery through his best friend. In his love letter, he expressed his happiness about her forsaking Islam and converting to Christianity. He expressed his desire to come in person as soon as possible and betroth her for a holy Christian matrimonial union, and if she accepted his proposal, he would marry her in the church in his next visit to his Jewish home. Ever since he heard the good news, Michael has eagerly awaited the next extended break in his school schedule so that he can fly with wings of love to his Christian girlfriend Christina. By the time his first love letter and marriage proposal had been hand-delivered to his Jewish grandparents, his Indian girlfriend Christina had already left for Mumbai. She had contacted the FBI headquarters in the city and requested they release her from her long protective custody and allow her to return to her country of origin. The FBI agreed to her request, but they strongly recommended she not return to her home in the city. After a long briefing of do's and don'ts, they told her that the Somali terrorists most possibly were still looking for her. Returning to her house in the city will allow them to target her again. Just before leaving the house of her loving Jewish caretakers, Christina likewise wrote a big love letter to her American lover thanking him for teaching her about God and his religion and showing her the road to spiritual fulfillment and inner peace. She concluded her first love epistle by informing him that she has been inspired by his good sacrificial example, and she has also decided to become a female nun. She has determined to be a committed Christian girl like him and never marry anyone or have sexual contact with any man all the rest of her life. Like him, she considered herself now to have become the perpetual bride of Christ. Before her trip to India, Christina stayed briefly in a hotel in the city until she officially changed her name and took the precaution of applying for a new Indian passport with a court decree listing the new name on her baptismal certificate. The Indian consulate issued the new passport in the name of Christina Lewinsky.